We're going to be doing a nice hearty salad. This salad has kind of like Middle Eastern inspired ingredients, especially the halloumi cheese that we're going to be featuring and searing, and that's going to be like the primary protein source in this recipe. It's one of my probably favorite foods on the planet, halloumi cheese. So happy that you're all going to be experiencing this when you make this recipe. And let's see. So in addition to the cheese, this salad is going to have lots of herbs as a part of the green mix for the base of the salad. It's also going to have chickpeas. There's going to be a yogurt-based dressing. There's some dates and some pistachios for garnish. And rather than doing like typical bread for croutons, we're going to tear up some pita and mix that in as well. So lots of really delicious ingredients going into this dish to make it a hearty entree, hearty vegetarian entree. Can also be served as a side, but it's got plenty of protein to be served as an entree as well. The first thing that we're going to do is make our brown rice because that takes a bit longer than everything else. Depending on the type of brown rice you have, it may not take more than 20 minutes or so, but could take up to 45 depending on the type. And then we're going to prep our cold ingredients for the salad. Then we'll make our dressing. Then we're going to sear the halloumi. I wanted to do that a little bit later in the class so the halloumi is still warm when we put it on the salad. And then we assemble everything. So this is it's got a lot of ingredients, but really the process of prepping this recipe is not difficult at all. The searing of the halloumi is probably the trickiest part, but even that is not very tricky. We're going to get started with the rice, like I said. So I've got my burner here and I have just a small sauce pot. And as always, I'm making half the amount of what you all are making, but the amounts that I tell you are the amounts that are in your recipe for 4 servings. So you don't have to worry about recalculating anything. But okay, so I'm turning on my burner and I'm putting it on about medium high. Well, we can put it up to high at first because we're just going to add our stock. So I'm using vegetable stock. This is a stock that our chef made in-house for me, so it's really delicious. And you can choose to use water if you'd like instead of stock. I prefer to use stock when I make grains because it helps just like give the grains more flavor. So like I said, I've got this on high. And I'm going to put, you've probably seen this before, but commercial kitchens often don't have a lid for a pot. So I have to just like sit this on top. So I'm going to remove that spotlight for now. And I'm just bringing that to a boil. And once that comes to a boil, then we will add in our rice. You could add the liquid and the rice in at the same time. Some people say that this affects the texture of the grain in a negative way, like it makes it too mushy. So you can kind of do an experiment if you'd like. So maybe this time you add the liquid first and add the rice once it starts boiling. And then next time you can put them in together and see if you notice a difference. Again, it probably depends on the type of grain, the hardiness of the grain. But because we're using brown rice, this type of grain is a bit hardier than refined rice, white rice. So I talk about whole grains all the time whenever I feature them in these classes because they're just a quick and easy way to add more protein and more nutrients, more micronutrients like folate and B vitamins, also adding extra fiber, extra healthy fats. All those nutrients cannot be found in refined grains, in white processed rice or other grains. So whole grains are just such an easy swap to make your meal more filling and more satisfying. I'm checking not just yet. I'm using an induction burner like I always do, and it boils very fast, so I'm keeping an eye on it. But once this comes to a boil, all we do is put the rice in, give it a little swirl to make sure all the rice is submerged, put a lid on it, turn it down to low, and put it aside. That's it. Very easy. So yes, the brown rice is serving as one of the more filling ingredients in this dish. You don't have to use rice. You could use any different kind of grain, whatever type of whole grain you like. You could use farro, barley, quinoa, millet, all different kinds of options. And, oh, yep, there it goes. This burner is so fast. Okay, so that for you was about 2 cups of liquid, and this is going to be 1 cup of rice. So make sure that this matches the package of the rice that you have. Sometimes different kinds of rice might need a little bit more liquid, but this ratio, the 2 parts liquid to 1 part grain, is usually a good way to go. So I'm adding the rice in there. I'm going to give it a stir. All right. And that's all we need to do for the rice right now. So turning the burner down to low, maybe not the lowest, but pretty low. And you'll put your lid back on. So with grains, it's really important. So like I was talking about the amount of liquid and the amount of grain. So the reason you want to actually measure the liquid compared to when you cook pasta and you can just like dump a bunch of water in the pot because you're discarding the water in the end. With grains, you want to provide just enough water that the grain absorbs all of the liquid and there's no liquid remaining. That's a really helpful way to tell if the grain is done cooking, if there's no excess liquid in the pot. But also that allows you to capture all of the nutrients from the grain and not have them leach out into the extra liquid that you end up throwing away. So that's why we like to measure out the right amount of liquid for this. So the next thing we're going to do is start to prep our cold ingredients. I wanted to show you, even though I said to wash all of your produce in advance, I wanted to show you a really efficient and helpful method to wash leafy greens and herbs. So this is flat leaf parsley. If you got curly parsley, that's okay. The taste is the same, just the look is different and the texture is a bit different. This type of parsley, the flat leaf, is used in like Middle Eastern cuisine, so that's why we're using this kind. The leaves are much bigger because the edges are not all curly like the other kinds. So what I'm gonna do, I actually have a salad spinner that I brought with me from home. And it comes with this big clear bowl. And it also comes with this basket that goes inside. And I'll show you how it works. But this big bowl is very helpful for washing herbs. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna fill this up. And again, I'll add my other spotlight. I'm gonna fill this up and put the parsley in it. And I'm gonna let it sit for a couple minutes. So I'm gonna first fill this up in the sink behind me. So if you have not washed your herbs yet, then this is a good time to do it. I'll walk you through the process. But it basically is that we fill up the bowl with water, we put the herbs in it, we swish it around, rub the leaves a little bit to try to get any of the dirt or sand off the leaves. Got a little bit too much water there. And then we let it sit. So I'm gonna keep it, I wanna keep my, the stems down here, the leaves up top. I wanna keep it, not like swirl it around so the stems and leaves kind of get all over the place. But here, what I'm doing is just sort of rubbing these leaves, making sure I'm pulling apart all of the sprigs. Want to make sure any dirt that's trapped in there is removed. And these leaves will float. The herbs will float. So the point of having a big bowl of water like this is to loosen up any dirt and sand, let the leaves float, and let any soil or sand float down to the bottom, or like little pebbles that might be in there. They all float down to the bottom. So I'm gonna let this sit for a couple minutes while we prep the other ingredients, because I wanna let that dirt and sand and the ingredients or the items we don't want sink down to the bottom. So I'll let that do its thing first. And then I'm going to talk about the mint. So mint you can wash the same way. We're not using as much mint in this recipe as we are parsley. So I washed this in advance, but you could wash all of your herbs or all of your lettuce or anything. You can wash it all that way. But with mint, since we've only got like a few sprigs here, we're just going to pull the leaves off. And the quickest way to do that is to get a grip on like the top of the stem and then just pull downward. So rather than trying to pull the leaves off going up to the top of the stem, if you pull downward, it pulls the leaves off very easily. And then the top, you can just kind of bunch all the leaves together and rip. And already that smells so good. Mint is like, it's not for everybody. So if you don't like fresh mint, you don't have to have it, but it definitely adds a really delicious like floral flavor and scent. So again, getting a good grip on the top and pulling backwards. And they come off with like very little effort. The stems, the mint stems are pretty tough. So with other herbs like the parsley, you'll see it's eating the stems is totally fine. But these stems are pretty tough. So we don't really want to eat those. But I'm just pulling these leaves off. I have probably like 5 or 6 sprigs here. And if you've not had fresh mint before, taste it because it is a very like strong flavor. It's a really interesting flavor. So if you're not crazy about it, no need to include it. But herbs are a great way to, add to the leafy greens that you have in a salad without taking away from like the bulk of the leaves. You're adding additional leaves and they have really unique flavors and aromas and nutrients of their own that you're not getting in lettuce. So I'm just going to give these a quick chop. I don't want to overdo it because mint, if you like over process it, it gets like bruised and kind of like discolored. So I'm just doing a really rough chop. Yeah, I just did like 4 chops. That's good enough. So the mint is going to the side. Okay, so the parsley is still sitting. While we're on the subject of herbs, I'm going to bring that back over. And I don't want to scoop in and get the parsley out really aggressively. What I want to do is very gently pull it out without jostling anything that fell down to the bottom. And then I'm going to go in my sink and just kind of shake this off. It's a good way to just get a lot of the water out. You just shake it over your sink. And if you look, I think it's not going to show up on the camera, but I can see little pieces of dirt and sand down at the bottom of this clear bowl. So I'm glad I'm not going to be eating that now. It can be really tedious to wash herbs. So doing it that way is much faster. So another shortcut that we're taking here is we are just going to be chopping these leaves off the stem. We're not going to be going through each stem and picking the leaves off like we did with the mint. So yeah, what we're going to do, what we're going to do is hold on to the stems like this. And we're going to, rather than having your knife be perpendicular up and down, we're going to tilt it to 45 degrees and kind of like cut and scrape at the same time. And you are going to get some stem in there. That's totally fine. You can kind of turn the bunch of parsley over. If you come across stems that don't have any leaves left, you can pull those out and keep going. One drawback to this method is that you don't get all of the parsley off. So if you really wanted to make sure you got all of it, you could pull out any of the stems that are left and just pull the leaves off. Or you can just call it a day and add these I'm pulling all the stems out that look like they don't have any leaves left on them. You could add what's left of this that you haven't cut off to your freezer and then use it to make vegetable stock at some point. So I've removed a bunch of the stems that had no leaves left, and now I'm doing another chop. All right. So this is what we have left. So yeah, this is the kind of stuff you can just throw it in your freezer and then use it to make vegetable stock down the line whenever you have enough vegetable scraps. And this is going to add to our lettuce. If you find, you can sort of sift through if you find any pieces that have, just stems, you can discard that. Just going to do a quick sift. Don't want to take too much time on this. But also, if you leave stems in, that's totally fine. It's just some crunchy greens. Nothing wrong with that. So there is no need to chop this more than we've already done. These, if you did flat leaf parsley, these are decently big leaves, and these are going to go really, really well just mixed into the lettuce. So that's it for the parsley. Much easier than pulling off each individual leaf. So I'm putting it aside with the mint. And actually what you can do is get a big bowl that you're going to mix your salad into at the end, and you can just put these herbs straight into a bowl. So that's what I will do. So parsley and mint going right into the big bowl. And then that gets put aside. All right. So now we're going to cut up our cucumber. Doing a time check there. All right. So I have a seedless cucumber. I already cut off half of it because I don't need all of this. But I'm just going to cut the end off. And then this is how I always like to cut cucumber in these classes. Lengthwise, put it down on the flat part, and then slice nice and thin. So cucumber obviously can be very crunchy, depending on how, I mean, it is crunchy, but if you cut big cubes compared to thin slices, it's going to be a bigger crunch. It's completely up to you how you prefer to cut this. This is my preference because I want the cucumber to be nice and thin so it mixes in very well with the lettuce and the herbs. So we've got some pretty thin slices there, nothing super thin, but thin enough. Putting that to the side, I'll do the other half. And so this seedless cucumber, this is the kind that it has like rough, like ridges on the outside, like a rough exterior rather than smooth and kind of waxy, like other non-seedless cucumbers. However, this actually does have seeds. They call it seedless, but the seeds are not crunchy at all. They're very, very soft. So you don't even notice the seeds. There we go. All right, and this cucumber can also go straight into your bowl with the lettuce, or with the herbs rather. So in that bowl, you should have your parsley, your mint, and your cucumber. So at this point, we can check on our rice. Show you what mine looks like. So it's definitely getting cooked down, but there's still a decent amount of liquid, so that's what we would expect. I'm gonna even that back out again. Put my lid back on it. Okay. All right, so then we're gonna keep going with prepping the salad ingredients. So here's where, let me wipe down my cutting board a little bit. Okay, so here is a whole wheat pita my head for size reference. This is about an 8-inch pita. And all I'm gonna do is just rip this into pieces. You could toast this if you wanted to make it crunchy, but honestly, it doesn't need it. And pita, you know, is like, they call it a pita pocket for a reason. So it's really like you're getting 2 thin pieces of bread here. And I'm just roughly ripping it up into pieces. You could chop it also if you'd rather. You could cut it into triangles and toast it to make pita chips. But I think that this is a great addition to the salad, just torn up into some like rustic pieces like this. You can also do, so this is whole wheat pita. You could also use white pita. You could also just use regular bread if you wanted to. Just the quick and easy way to make croutons for a salad is just to make toast. Put bread in a toaster and rip the toast up into pieces, and there's your crouton. That's what I always do at home. It's very easy. All right. So I'm setting this aside. I don't want to mix the pita into the herbs and stuff just yet because I don't want it to get too soggy. I want to keep it nice and dry until it's time to mix it in with the salad dressing. All right, and one final thing that we're going to do to prep the cold ingredients right now, and that is to cut up our dates. So anybody had dates before? Do you like them? Do you not like them?
They are delicious.
Yeah, I agree with you. So these are, truthfully, I don't know the types of dates that these ones are. They're not the medjool dates, medjool. Those ones are much darker, bigger. The skin is kind of like flaky. These ones are a bit smaller, but I'm gonna just cut all of these up and we'll use them as a garnish. They have the same flavor. They're maybe a little bit less sweet than a medjool date. So what I'm gonna do is just cut it lengthwise. Basically what we did with the cucumbers. Lengthwise, chop, 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 chop. There we go. Don't need to do anything crazy. This is just a garnish. You could also have a few for a snack while you make your dinner. Okay. Dates are also, when we do catering events here, sometimes our chefs will like to do like dates stuffed with goat cheese or something like that because they're a good vessel because they're so large. These are really delicious sweet toppings for this otherwise savory salad. Also, you can buy dates with the pits in them still. So hopefully none of you have pits in yours and you can just take the shortcut. But we've got those all chopped and ready to go. What we're doing right now is preparing our mise en place, which means everything in its place. That's like the French culinary term. Preparing everything so it's ready to go to assemble. Okay, checking on my rice again. Still some liquid left. The easiest way to know if it's done is just to tilt the pot, and if you see some liquid sloshing, it's not done yet. Okay, but we are done with this step to prep all of our ingredients that we can prep for the salad. Next, we're gonna do our dressing. So let's grab a mixing bowl. And we have another herb we're introducing. I'll set this bowl aside for a moment. This is dill, fresh dill. So it looks kind of like thyme. Obviously, like dill pickles, that's probably the best known use for dill. But this, you know, you can wash this the same way that I showed you how to do the parsley. And we're using a few sprigs. You know, the sprigs might be different sizes, but you can kind of see, you know, depending on the size of the sprig, this one has these ones on the side. This one is just single. So basically what you want to do is the stem up top is very thin and delicate. So you can basically just break it off as soon as the leaves start growing. Just break it off and you can keep the rest of that stem because we're going to be mincing this. Okay. So you can go ahead and go through and rip all those leaves off. And when it comes to the amount of dill that we use in this, it's completely up to you. What I'm doing here and what you have in your recipe is like something like 5 sprigs. Again, the sprigs vary in size, so it's up to you. All right, and oops, I see a big stem here. All right, and we're mincing. So kind of line them all up and then just chop all the way through. And then you can sort of turn it 45 degrees-ish, chop again, turn it a little bit more, chop again. And we just go over and over and over. You can rotate your knife to get a different perspective. When you mince something, the best way to get a good, good leverage is to keep the tip of your knife on the cutting board and rock it down. Rock it back and forth. The tip of my knife is not leaving. I'm using my other hand to keep it on the board. I'm like putting pressure down. And you just keep going back and forth. You can sweep it back into a nice tight pile when you need to. And we want to mince this because it's being mixed into our yogurt dressing. So we want it to nice and evenly distribute throughout the dressing. This herb, unfortunately, makes a big mess, but it smells delicious. All right, so that looks about good. I'll show you up close. So just little pieces. So that's good to go. And we're gonna put that right into our mixing bowl. Okay. I've got all this dill stuck to my hands. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is our lemon. We need to cut it in half and juice it. So I'll scooch the bowl over here. I wanna wipe off this board a little bit, get rid of some of that dill, if it's possible. Okay, so what I always do in these classes and what I encourage you to always do at home is that when you want to juice a lemon, put it on the board, one hand over the other, lean your weight into it and roll it back and forth. Really put a lot of weight on it. You want it to end up feeling like a really ripe avocado, that squishy. And that allows you to get lots of juice out of it. And this works for any citrus fruit. If you think of, the way citrus fruit looks, it's got like all those little individual pockets of liquid. So you're loosening all of those up. You're kind of breaking those out of like their membrane, like the contained like slice membrane of the citrus. Okay. So we're gonna start with I'm gonna cut it across this way. We're just gonna juice half the lemon to start. If you have a juicer, you can use that, but if you don't, that's okay. Sometimes your lemon has like an annoying bump there that makes juicing difficult. So you can just cut that off. You don't need to keep that. All right. So the way to put it into the juicer is to put it like this. All right, and I'm bringing my bowl over and juicing the entire half of the lemon. Okay. Sometimes I feel like there seems like there's a decent amount still left in there. So I like to try to give it another squeeze just with my hand. Make sure we got everything out. Oops, got a seed. And one way to make sure we get everything out is I like to sort of squeeze it like this so all of the pulp is sticking out, and then I rub it on the side of the bowl. And you can see there's juice coming out of that. Okay. So we've got the lemon juice and the dill. Now we have plain Greek yogurt. So this is plain Greek yogurt. This kind is non-fat. You can use whatever fat content you like. I'm scooping half cup. This is also what's in your recipe. Half a cup Greek yogurt. So depending on how much liquid you add to this dressing, this could be pretty thick, which is great. The next ingredient is extra virgin olive oil. So this in the recipe calls for a quarter cup. Add maybe like half of it at first. You may want more, but you might not. And the only ingredient we're missing at this point is black pepper. So you can add just a pinch of black pepper, whatever your preference is. Okay. And now we're whisking. So I'm making this in a nice big bowl because it actually helps to coat some of the other ingredients of dressing later on. If you're making it in a small bowl, that's also fine. So this is pretty thick. You can see how slowly it's dripping. So I do think I want to add some of the other more liquidy ingredients, like the rest of the olive oil and some more lemon juice as well. Maybe not the entire other half of lemon, up to you, but I'm just squeezing some with my hands. And of course, there's a bunch of seeds in that. Now that I have to scoop those out. Which also, you don't have to scoop these out. Sometimes at home, I'm too lazy and I leave it, and then I just get a crunchy seed every so often when I'm eating my salad. So mixing that up some more. So if you added all of the olive oil, you're going to notice that the yogurt is like tinted yellow, especially if you use extra virgin olive oil, which is extra virgin olive oil is basically fresh pressed olive juice. It's not processed in any way, hence the virgin part of the name. So the color, flavor, and aroma are strongest. Okay, I'm gonna give it a taste. Sure, I get a good soup. Yeah, that tastes great. Perfect. So if you prefer like more tangy flavor, you might want to add more lemon. I think I put in the recipe 1 to 2 lemons because everyone's got different lemon preference. You also might want to squeeze some lemon juice on the finished salad in the end as an additional garnish. But yeah, so you can add some more lemon juice here if you'd like. You can add some more pepper. You could also add salt, but we didn't add salt to this because the halloumi is pretty salty, and we have, you know, that when it gets mixed into the dish, increases the salt content. But if salt is not something that you're concerned about, then you can go ahead and add salt to this as well. Okay. So now my rice is done, and we're gonna sear our halloumi. So the rice is done. There's no more liquid down there. There's a little bit of rice stuck to the bottom, so I'm just scraping it up. You can also taste, or rather texture test it. Make sure that the texture is what you want it to be. And we're good to go with this. I'm gonna set that aside with no lid on because we don't need the lid. We're just gonna let it cool down a little bit. Okay, and now I'm moving my burner back over because I want you to see, actually, I have to cut the halloumi first. All right, so we're moving on to the halloumi, which I have right here. I've removed it from the pack already, but halloumi is stored in a salty brine. That's why it's so salty. But this size is probably a little different than what you got in your grocery store. But basically, what you want to do is cut it into planks that are roughly a 1/4 inch thick. So you end up with something that looks about like this. And we're going to cut all of our halloumi into that shape. You want it to be about, the same size, same width, all the pieces. So halloumi is one of those cheeses that you can grill it or sear it, and it doesn't just like fall apart and melt into liquid. It keeps its shape, which is really great. It gives it more uses that you can't get out of like mozzarella, for example, or cheddar. And if you've never had halloumi before, give it a taste right now before you sear it. It is so good. It will probably remind you of feta because of the briny saltiness, but the texture is different than feta. It crumbles a little bit, but not anywhere near as much as feta does.
So, Eliza, are yours more squarish, or do you keep them more the rectangular shape? Or
they're more rectangular, I would think.
Okay.
Would say, but honestly, square or rectangle doesn't matter, because I think the block of halloumi that you get, you can either cut it this way or you can cut it this way, whatever you would prefer.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You like, but the width is really what matters. You want about, no wider than, or no thicker, I should say, than like 1/2 inch. But you can aim for like a 1/4 inch. Okay, so now I'm bringing my burner back over. And I'm bringing over, I'm also bringing over a non-stick pan. This is going to be important to have a non-stick pan if it's available to you. Just makes the process easier. And I'm heating up this pan to medium high. I'm gonna just move my camera up a little bit because the oil is gonna splash it. So medium high, and I'm gonna let it heat up before I add the canola oil, because that's gonna allow it to retain as much of the non-stick properties as it can. So these really only take like 30 seconds aside, if that. The more the pan is heated up, like the further through the process you get, the quicker it goes. Yeah, this is feeling pretty warm now. So we're using canola oil rather than olive oil because canola oil doesn't get smoky, or it takes a lot more to get it smoky. And I've roughly added like a tablespoon-ish. Swirling it around. You're also going to want to have some tongs handy. Those are very helpful with flipping the halloumi over. Okay. All right, I'm going to put in the first piece and see if it sizzles. Not yet. Went too soon. Oh, it's starting to sizzle. I'll just wait till that one like actually sizzles before I add the other ones. When you sear something, the process of searing is that you want a nice hot pan, then you add your canola oil, then you add your ingredients that you want to sear. And searing can be done, so this halloumi is edible without even searing it at all, but maybe I'll turn up my burners. These burners are finicky sometimes. So the process of searing can be done with something like this, that searing is the only cooking that we're doing for this halloumi, Or it can be the first step before braising something, like if you wanted to braise short ribs or braise chicken thighs or something like that. Oh, now you can maybe see that that's bubbling a little bit. Now I'll add the other pieces. But yeah, when you braise something, the first step is to sear it. And I want to make sure the oil coats the pan. The oil conducts the heat. So you want to make sure that it's all over the pan there. And you don't want to overcrowd the pan either. You've probably heard that before in recipes, which sometimes when you hear that, you're like, I just want to hurry up and cook this thing. But if you overcrowd it, then the quality may not come out as good as you want it to, because if there's too much in here, then the halloumi doesn't all get to have a flat, complete contact with the pan to allow it to fully sear, which is what we want. We want it to be fully in contact with the pan. And you can sort of swirl it around or move them around, make sure they're not sticking. And you're probably seeing some of the liquids in the halloumi are coming out into the oil. So the volume of the liquid on the bottom of the pan is going to probably increase. So this is the first one I put in. I want to look, all right, no searing yet. Latrice and Bev, are you guys searing at this point? Or is anybody else cooking along that I don't know about?
Yep, I'm searing.
Okay.
I'm searing as well.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So I keep checking that one that I put in first, but might as well check the others as well. So if you have pieces that are different thicknesses, I actually have this one is a little bit thinner than this one. This one is still like hard, but the thinner one is getting a little bit squishy. Like I said, it's not going to actually like melt and ooze out into the rest of the pan. It's going to keep its shape. It'll just get softer. So while that's going, to be efficient with our time, we can actually start to assemble the rest of the salad. So what I'm going to do, we have our bowl with the herbs and the cucumber. At this point, you can add your pita into that. Sometimes I know that people have an aversion to like wet bread. If you are one of those people, you can just add your pita as a garnish at the end. But if you don't mind, then you can go ahead and add it, and we're going to toss it in with the dressing. So I'm putting the pita into the bowl with the herbs. Oh, my phone is frozen. There we go. And the cucumber. So I'm going to check this again. I think these are getting a little browned at this point. Oh yeah, a little bit of brown there. This one I think is going to be nice and brown. Awesome. So always be careful. The best way to like fry something when you have a pan full of oil is to make sure that you're not dropping the item back so that it splashes oil onto you. The best way to do it is to drop it away from you. Away from you. And we can make sure that that's coated with oil again. All right, so now that this pan is hot enough to sear those sides, the rest of this should move fairly quickly. So the other side won't need nearly as much time. But okay, so we've got our salad with the cucumber, the herbs, and pita. We're gonna take about half of our dressing and put it into this salad and toss it together, not all of it. If you have a silicone spatula, that's a really helpful tool for scooping dressing out of a bowl. So we're doing half the dressing. Don't want to overdo it. We can always add more, can't take away. Okay, I'll Actually, let me check the sear. I don't want to burn these. Wow, yeah, so that second side goes way faster. This one needs a little bit more. This guy is done. So if they're done, you can actually put some paper towels in a bowl or a plate, and you can sit them on top of the paper towels. So the paper towels will soak up some of the oil. So let's see, I think this one was done. Yep. One is done. Ooh, that's a good sear. Ooh, yeah, it gets better and better as you go. Ooh, wow, that's a good one. All right, so these are done. I'm gonna do the next batch. Make sure you're not slopping it down so the oil sprays you. You wanna drop it away from you. Make sure the oil is coating the bottom. And these should sear very quickly. But we've got our dressing on our salad. You can toss that together. I'm just using like a spoon. If you want to use the same tongs or another pair of tongs, you can do that. But tossing this together. We actually did not have green and red leaf lettuce blend in-house today, so I'm using spinach. I have baby spinach. So I've got those greens that I'm also adding in. I think these are ready to flip already. Oh, maybe not yet. You can sort of see the edges. You can tell the edges of the cheese are getting a little bit brown. So that might be your clue that it's time to flip it. So just keep an eye on that. All right, so we're tossing the salad here. Then we've got our chickpeas that we haven't talked about yet. You've got canned chickpeas that are drained and rinsed. What we're gonna do with those is actually dump the rest of these, or dump the chickpeas into the rest of the dressing and toss that together. The reason we're doing it separate is because we're gonna plate it up with the chickpeas on top of the rest of the salad. You don't have to do it this way. You could just add your chickpeas to the rest of the salad mix that you have. So we're gonna keep this separate for now. Now I'm gonna check my cheese. Yeah. Ooh, that's a good sear. Nice. Okay, so you may have to do this in like 3 or 4 batches, depending on how big your pan is. I have one more little batch. I know we're just about at 6:30, but we're almost done. So the only things left to combine are the brown rice, which you can add into your salad blend now. So I'm gonna add that in full. All the brown rice goes right in. And that's gonna contribute to the heartiness of this salad for sure. So here's my salad with the herbs, the lettuce, cucumbers, pita, brown rice, and half the dressing. If you're not eating this right now, you don't need to add the dressing just yet. Let me make sure. All right, I'm putting this in the paper towels. These ones are good to go. Nice. Ooh. So good. Okay, so I only have 2 more pieces here. So yeah, I've got my salad. Most of it is all mixed together. So at this point, all you got to do is plate it up. So I'm going to demonstrate how to plate it, how I think makes it look very nice and pretty. You can choose to do it however you'd like. But I'm just scooping that salad mix that we just made onto the plate. Making sure I get pita, cucumbers, mint, parsley, lettuce, all the different parts that I want. I always like to make sure that the colors are sort of, even though these colors are nothing crazy and vibrant, I like to just make sure they're kind of like evenly distributed across the plate. All right. Definitely time to flip this. I think it's, whew, that was the fastest sear yet. Like I said, when you get toward the end, the sear goes so fast. All right, so we've got the salad blend, then the chickpeas that are tossed in the dressing will go on top of this. I definitely want to keep an eye on that. The last two pieces of cheese there, because I don't think it's going to take long. All right, yes, those are done. So those go in the paper towels as well. And we turn off the burner. Done with the cheese. All right. So let me move some stuff out of the way so you can see what I'm working on. All right. So those of you at home, are you still searing?
I'm done searing.
I'm
Okay.
all done, yeah.
All right. So here's the chickpeas on top, have like a little extra dressing there. You can then take some of the additional dressing that's on the bottom of the chickpea bowl and drizzle that as well, if you'd like. But we've got chickpeas on top. Then comes the halloumi. If you'd like to, you can cut the halloumi into strips, or you can just place like a few slices, sort of layer them. Actually, I should do, I'm gonna get the right angles here so they can be layered on top of each other. There we go. So we've got our halloumi sort of like stacked there. Then we have our dates that we chopped up. So you can take those and sprinkle those around. And the final ingredient that we haven't talked about yet is pistachios. Hopefully yours are already out of the shell. So all you have to do is pick them up and sprinkle them around the plate. If you have any additional herbs, you can garnish your plate, but your whole salad is made of herbs, so you don't really need a garnish. And here's the salad. You could do a little bit of olive oil on top, additional olive oil. You could do lemon juice, salt and pepper, any of your favorite toppings. But this salad is so, so, so delicious. It's salty, it's savory, it's a little bit sweet. It's got different kinds of crunch flavor or crunch texture. There's the aromatics of the herbs, all kinds of good stuff in there. So those of you at home, I'd love to see, I'm gonna go to the gallery view. If you're willing to share your plates, I'd love to see them.
Don't look at the mess, but
You should see this kitchen. It's also a mess.
yeah, can you
Yeah,
see?
I can
Okay.
see.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that
Yeah,
looks great. So did you leave the halloumi in the planks or did you cut it up?
It separated into planks. It wasn't
Okay.
quite as firm as yours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it ended up like it just wasn't nice and firm.
That's okay.
But it worked out fine because then I didn't have to slice it.
Perfect, perfect. Latrice, how's yours? Wow, gorgeous.
It smells so good in here. I can't wait to eat this.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Like the fried cheese is just like the best.
Yeah.
Smells so good. But awesome. Thank you all so much for being
Thank
here. I hope you
you.
enjoy your dinners.
Thank you.
And
Have a lovely
yeah,
holiday,
thank you very
everybody.
much. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And
Happy holidays.
yeah,
Happy
happy
holidays.
holidays. Okay, we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Bye.